This is Tell Me Exactly, an emergency communications podcast. I'm your host, Meredith Jensen. Today joining me is Sara Wright from our implementations department, and she is one of our project managers. Sara, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Good morning. My name is Sara Wright. I'm a project manager with Priority Dispatch. I've got a little over 23 years working in 2 different 911 centers in Central Texas, where I'm from, where I still live. It's something that I really enjoy doing.
Awesome. 23 years. That's amazing. That is incredible. So, and you guys were police, fire, and medical ProQA users at your agency, right?
Yeah, my first agency was a triple user. Second agency only used the police and fire disciplines.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about some of the demographics of the agency that you worked with. Because since we're talking about kind of burnout and refreshing your staff, was it a big center, a medium-sized center?
So my first agency, probably when I started out there, probably small to medium-sized agency. My second agency is more of a smaller police agency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Excellent. 23 years, though. Wow, you've probably seen a lot. So let's talk about where burnout comes from in the comm center. What's been your experience with that?
So we see burnout a lot when people are doing the same thing every day. And not getting support, or it could be stresses at work, it could be stresses at home, combination of everything. You start to notice it in the way people answer the phones, in the way they interact with responders or with their coworkers or with management.
Yeah, and I mean, we're all humans, right? We're not really programmed to do the same thing over and over again, 40 plus hours every week, for 23 years, like you said,
Yeah.
right? And how could it be avoided?
So a lot of it is going to depend on the individual person, right?
Okay.
It's, as a manager, as admin, whatever, in a communication center, you can't put it on yourself to expect to be able to fix every problem. So there is some personal responsibility, but you do have the ability in management, in admin, in the 911 center to make an environment that will reduce the risks of burnout in your staff. When you start to see burnout in your folks in the comm center, it's important to not ignore it, right?
Okay.
You can't ignore the situation. If there's a particular person, it is important to talk with them about it, to have the conversation. Look, I'm noticing some differences in the way you're answering calls or the way you're interacting with your folks. So not ignoring it, being open about your own personal experiences with burnout or with mental health struggles or whatever else. That's a huge thing within the comm center. So when you start seeing signs of burnout in the center, when people are getting ugly on the phone or getting ugly on the radio or with their coworkers, it is really important to not ignore it. You've got to confront it. You've got to be open about it and asking the questions. Look, what's going on? Is there something that we can do to help you? Do you need a break? Do you need to go talk to EAP? Do we need to get peer support counseling in here? Whatever options you might have there available for your staff. But also making sure that they understand that whatever struggles you might have had personally, so if you've had some mental health struggles or struggles with burnout, being open about that with your staff gives them an environment that it's safe. I'm not going to be afraid of getting fired or kicked out of the comm center because I'm struggling right now.
Yeah. It's okay to not be okay sometimes, right?
Exactly. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I told people training a long time ago, there was a book that we had on training in 911, and there was a cartoon with a knight and a dragon, and the knight is burnt to a crisp, and the caption just says, "Sometimes the dragon wins," and that has stuck with me forever. That I've taught people, we can't fix everything for everybody, and that wears on you after a while.
Right.
The bad calls, the struggles that you have, and that can add to the sense of burnout. The fact that you can't be there to fix everybody's problems or to save everybody, and you got to remember, sometimes the dragon wins.
So some things that you said that I really like that I want to touch on is the first thing is a little bit of the onus being on the person, right? The person that's experiencing burnout. But I really liked that you also said that there's some ownership there of management, to not ignore it, to actually take action when we see these sort of signs of burnout and things like that. So if we are seeing those signs of burnout in our employees in the comm center, what should leadership do to address it? You spoke a little bit about sharing some experiences and reaching out, but what's the first step to kind of really make sure that that person doesn't fall further into that burnout?
Mr. Rogers said, if it's mentionable, it's manageable, right? So
Oh, I like that.
if it's,
I like
I
that.
know this, it sticks in my head. If it's mentionable, it's manageable. So whatever we're struggling with internally, as long as we can talk about it, then there's some place we can go with it. It's not just stuck inside of our own head. So I really think, yes, it is, there is personal responsibility there, right? I need to recognize that yes, I'm struggling and I need to get help for that. But sometimes it takes somebody else pointing out to me,
Recognizing it, yeah.
you're having a hard time lately. What can I do to help you? And sometimes maybe that's all it takes, is just the recognition, the pointing out that, like, look, this is not, I notice a difference in you.
Yeah.
What can we do to fix this? Can we get you some help? I mean, we all struggle as comm center managers. Everybody has had that struggle of, you put in so many hours and so much money and time into training a person, and you get them all trained up, and then you start seeing the burnout. And if you don't do something about it when you start seeing it, you're going to lose good people.
Yeah.
If you look at any of the 911 dispatcher Reddit subreddit threads or forums, you constantly are seeing signs of folks in agencies where they're obviously not being cared for.
Right.
And management isn't talking to them, and it's disappointing. It's heartbreaking. I just think that one of the biggest things that management can do is just not be afraid to have those conversations with people.
Right. And so one of the first steps then for leadership would be to share with the person that they've noticed is experiencing some signs of burnout the resources that are available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What resources do you have in your community, right? And it's important as a manager for you to understand that and be familiar with those resources. Do you have employee assistance program in your center? Do you have a peer support team around in the area? Even if it's not in your specific center, sometimes your surrounding agencies may have a peer support team or crisis intervention team or employee assistance program that they would be willing to loan you, or say, hey, it's just a matter of finding what resources are out there available for you and making them available to your folks.
Let's talk about, again, you've got 23 years of experience in a comm center. Let's talk about some things that you have seen that can really help to alleviate that burnout, sort of beyond the resources that are available. What are some tips or tricks of things that have helped that you've seen in the past?
Make sure your folks are taking time off. I mean, everybody has somebody in their center that never takes a day off,
right?
And that covers all the overtime, and it's really awesome. Those folks are so helpful and they're so great. But they're also going to be the ones that get burned out really quickly.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to encourage your staff to take time off, take the vacation time, or encourage them not to come to work if they're sick. Yes, we are all struggling with staffing issues and whatever, but if the expectation in your center is that you need to be here regardless of how bad you're feeling, you're adding to the problem. You're increasing the risks of burnout there. People need to understand that they can use their leave when they need to, because being able to take time away from the center is important. Mm-hmm. Making sure that your admin staff understand the job that the line dispatchers and call takers are doing is also really important. Mm-hmm. In the centers where you have admin staff that haven't ever done the job, it can be really easy for line level dispatchers and call takers to not feel supported or understood or appreciated. Not saying that the manager has to be out there answering calls, but just that they understand, that just so your staff understand that, yes, I know how to do the job and I understand the struggles that you're facing.
Yeah, because that's going to make them more open to speak about the experiences that they might be struggling with, right?
Yeah.
If they know that the person that they have to go to maybe has not been through the exact same situation that they're dealing with, but on some level kind of understands what it's like to sit in that chair.
Right. When you go to a place where a fire chief says that, well, I know that they say the response starts as soon as the call is answered, but they're wrong. The response doesn't start until wheels turn. Yeah. I've actually heard a fire chief say that. Yeah. And they say it in front of dispatchers, and it just, it really is not.
That cuts pretty hard.
It does. It cuts pretty deep,
Yeah.
One of the things that, just like simple little things, during telecommunicator week, we would have one night where we would let everybody go out bowling and have the admin staff working the comm center while everybody who's on duty went out bowling or went to dinner or something like that.
That sounds great.
You know, there's just, and it doesn't have to be anything that you spend a lot of money on or that requires a lot of money. Because none of us have extra money in our budgets, right?
Right.
So it's finding the little things that you can do that will help to show your staff that you understand that they are real people with real lives outside of this job that they're doing, this really important job that they're doing that we need them to be 100% for.
Right. And I love that. So, recognizing that they are humans that have lives outside of the comm center. You mentioned that kind of at the beginning of this episode, that sometimes the burnout can also be from things that are even outside of the comm center happening in their lives. And so, definitely understanding and recognizing that we have to be human with the other humans, right?
Yes.
I heard a quote once recently at a conference that I just attended that basically was kind of saying, pizza parties are just not enough, right? Like, because, when comm centers have a shared experience of any time something massive happens in a comm center, what is the first thing that the community and everyone else around them wants to do? Feed them, right? They bring in food because, it's like when you have a relative that passes away and everybody shows up at your door with a casserole, right? We don't know how to help. So we help in only the ways that we can, right? Yeah. We can bring food, but it has to be more than pizza parties, right? It has to be on that human level of, look, I understand that you're in this job, you're passionate about it, you want to be here every day, you want to help, you want to work overtime, you want to help your team, but also what are you doing to take care of yourself, right?
Yeah, what are you doing? And there's so many different things that, so many different centers that we've been to. If you don't have windows in your center, you got a center that's brought in an aquarium and that they have fish in there. Or we have centers that allow people to bring their dogs into work now, or they have a service dog that comes into the dispatch center.
Yeah.
Or centers that have said, you know what, we are not public facing, so you guys don't have to wear uniforms anymore.
Right. Wear your jeans.
Wear your jeans, wear shorts even if you want to in some places.
Shoes. Yeah.
So what are things that we can do that aren't going to cost us any money, but that is going to make the job just a little bit easier and nicer for the person that's coming in to do it and sitting there in the chair in the dark for 8 or 10 or 12 hours at a time, or sometimes more than that if we get really busy.
Right. Yeah. And finding the things that are meaningful to your dispatchers.
Right.
What about asking the dispatchers themselves what they would like?
Yes,
right. I often find that's something that leadership can overlook sometimes. Like they get an idea in their head and they go in that direction and they forget to ask the dispatchers if that's even going to be meaningful for them. I think that's sometimes the place where we see that sort of pizza parties aren't enough kind of attitude, right? That's where someone has said, okay, the only thing I can do is pizza parties, right? They haven't reached out to the staff and said, what would be helpful to you? Because not everybody's going to react the same to everything. We know that. What are some of the biggest things to look out for when it comes to burnout with dispatchers, Sarah?
I think the biggest thing to look for is changes in behavior. I mean, I really think that's how you see it, how you start to see burnout is changes in behavior. And even if it's not to the public, even if it's not on the calls that you're answering, it's going to be in the interactions with the coworkers.
Yeah.
If they stop, if somebody that has normally been really talkative and friendly when they come in, all of a sudden they come in and they're quiet and they're slouching in their chair and they don't say anything for the entire shift. You can't ignore those kind of things. Yeah. Yes, we all have bad days. We all have off days. Okay, that's awesome, But if those off days are happening every week or every night, you can't go too long without saying, because those the negativity in the comm center, it is contagious.
Yeah.
And it really catches on quickly.
Oh man, we know that it can become a really toxic environment very quickly.
Yeah.
Because we're 24/7, right? And so we're there all the time.
Right.
What about I mean, yeah, those are definitely some big red flags that you got to watch out for. But what about the person that does volunteer for all the overtime and never takes a day off, never takes a vacation day? Should we check in on that person too, just to make sure that they're not kind of stuck in survival mode, thinking that they're being a champion for their center?
Exactly. Yeah. You'd have folks that sometimes that are losing time because they simply cannot accrue anymore. And,
Right.
and I am not and never have been one of those people. I will take my vacations, but
Sure.
yeah, it's having those conversations with people and saying, hey, Joe, you're not accruing any more vacation time because you haven't used any. Do you need some time off here? Is there something that we can do? And I mean, maybe there's not. Maybe if they're performing as expected and you're not having disciplinary issues or negative things like that, then by all means let them keep doing what they're doing. But simply knowing that, or your staff knowing that you're going to be checking in on them if you notice something that you think is out of the ordinary, I think is a big thing too, for your folks to understand that you're in their corner, that you're there for them, that they can count on you.
Yeah, I really like that. Putting the expectation up front that I'm going to check in on you. I'm going to be keeping my eye on you, whether you like it or not. I mean, just because I'm here for you, right?
Yeah.
That's great, because we do have people in this industry that, probably need help, but are either afraid or hesitant to ask for it.
Right.
So yeah, that's great. So I like setting up that expectation on the front. No, just because that helps everybody know that no matter what sort of side of the fence that you're on in terms of asking for help, you're going to be supported.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have somebody looking out. Sarah, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wealth of knowledge and your experience. These are some very helpful ideas that I think our listeners can definitely take away, and things to look out for at their center, and people to make sure that to keep their eyes on for burnout. Thanks again for being here.
Thanks for having me, Meredith. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we'll have to have you back and share some more stories and knowledge.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star rating wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to let us know what you liked, and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Look for @TellMeExactly to get the latest on all things emergency communications. Tell Me Exactly is a Priority Dispatch Corporation podcast developed by our team of protocol experts and hosted by me, Meredith Jensen, with Cody Ekman as producer, Reading Roberts as sound engineer, Scott Robinson and Jason Barber as executive producers.